evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of TBR, and I'm George Binns. And we're continuing with our discussions with the candidates because this is election season. And this evening we have with us candidate for City Council at Large. Yeah, that's it. Julie Flowers, and you're already a City Councilor at Large. You're president of the board even.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me back, George. It's always so nice to be here with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for the invite.
So you're out and about talking to people. What do you hear? What are the people thinking?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest questions that people have, and I think not surprising, has to do with what's happening with our budget.
Yeah.
What's going to be the situation for Beverly in this coming fiscal year, but really also people do have questions about, I think anybody who was thinking about, listening to, tuned in for, attended our last budget process, heard us referring to or heard us talking about that FY26, the year we're going into, would be challenging, but that for fiscal year 27, the financial forecast helps us already understand that we've got some challenges. So people definitely have excellent questions about that, really thoughtful conversations. And then the other thing that is sort of always a conversation, and it makes a lot of sense, because I always say it's one of the things that affects people every day, intimately, the minute you walk out your door, questions about infrastructure.
Yeah.
Continued questions about roads, paving, sidewalk restoration. People have seen a lot of crews out. We have had a lot of work happening in Beverly, which is a real positive. And so I think there's both a sense of optimism, seeing that work is happening, and also questions about what are the plans ahead, and us knowing as a city, and then just being able to talk about and think about how to make our money do the best, most work to keep up with our infrastructure. As you know, we'll never catch all the way up in one year on the roads that need work. People will talk about their street where they live, and I always say nobody's wrong. Everybody who's observing my street, my sidewalk, it's absolutely true. And so it's just figuring out all the time how we can use our resources most responsibly to do the best good for people.
Yeah, that's a continuing problem because there's wear and tear on the streets.
Yes.
And I don't know if the National Grid is finished digging up the streets or not, but if not, they'll figure some reason. If they're not, then it'll be the gas company who comes through again. And they went through my neighborhood 2 years ago.
Yes, I remember.
And I can remember seeing them slowly working their way around. They got maintenance they got to do. And I think one of the good things that the city insisted on, I think it was Mike Collins, that instead of when you cut a narrow trench,
yes,
put a little patch over it, make the patch 4 feet wide. And it takes a lot of the bumps out of it, and it makes the road look a heck of a lot better. It's almost like a half paving for the street. And just ask them to come back and dig up the street again and do the whole thing. Yeah.
No, it's a great point. I think folks may not realize that utility companies, when they need to cut into a street, a lot of communities, they will just do that narrow trench and narrow paving like you just described. And we've really tried as a community, and you're right, Commissioner Collins has really been a leader on that, to demand more of them, to get a better result for residents when the street has to be opened. We also, as a community, have a fairly assertive policy that is not the case in every community, that has to do with the fines or the fees, it's really fees, that they pay to cut into the roads. And so if a road is more newly paved, then the fee is higher. And the reason for that is it allows either them or us, we will take that money and we'll do the work to ensure that our DPS team will do the work, but to ensure that we really get a good result. But the more newly paved the street, the more we want to make sure that it goes back to its original condition. So I think we've been able to both manage that in a way that I think gets a better result for residents.
Yeah.
But it also does encourage some of that routine maintenance that you just talked about. For a utility company, if they know a street's getting paved, it's in their interest to get in there before we're going to do it, which just means some of that routine underground work, especially talking about infrastructure, aging gas pipe infrastructure is a reality across the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
Having them be able to get in there on a little more aggressive schedule to make sure that those repairs are getting done,
Yeah,
it keeps us safer
It
too.
gets coordinated together.
Yeah.
Everybody works together instead of putting in a brand new road, then go back 2 weeks later and chew it up again.
Yeah, and sometimes I know residents will see that happen. Sometimes an emergency happens.
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
But and I know that's frustrating. So I just wanted to acknowledge if people see that, that's never the hoped for plan, and just to know that we will then do the best we
Yeah,
can to
it-
make sure it goes back to
It's got to be
how
a
it
real
was.
problem to cause that, yeah.
Yeah.
And I notice coming back from the Y, they've been tearing up
Yes.
the corner,
Yeah.
and it's finally all put back together again.
Yes.
And they did a really nice job on that one because you can barely feel the bump as you go across the paving difference.
Yeah.
So it comes out right sometimes. And now they're working on the sidewalks coming down Essex Street. So
Over near the Y.
yeah,
Yeah. There is
Well,
there's a safety enhancement happening there for sure.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
difficult intersection, as you
Yeah.
know. So yeah.
just past Herd Stadium and
Yes.
all that area and through there.
Yes.
And it's happening. It's never, like you say, it's never fast enough, and it's not in my neighborhood, kind of thing. But yeah, it's an ongoing process. And the other one I think people are going to get concerned about is what about the schools?
Yes.
And
That's another big
technically,
topic.
the school committee is supposed to take care of the school budget, and the city council just nod your head, or you can't adjust it. You can only say yay or nay, or. But one of the concerns I think I'm having is that a lot of the problem with the 27 budget seems to be driven by the teachers' settlement, the contract. And they're going to be doing something to recover from the strike. And there's been a lot of talk about, to get through this year, there's been significant cuts. And they want to restore a lot of the paras and some of the staff. And in looking into it, it looks like there's been a deterioration in school performance. And it's usually blamed on COVID, but in reality, it goes back to like 2013. Excuse me. And you get to Einstein's theory of insanity, keep doing the same thing and expect to get a different outcome. So city council is going to have to make a decision on, is that the right way to spend this money?
You know, it's a great question. What's causing some of that strain on the FY27 budget, and I think people really are interested to hear about our schools and how we're going to continue to support them and make sure that we're really funding them well and appropriately and fully and supporting the educators, because I think whether or not people have children in the schools, as a community, I think there is sort of a collective understanding that public schools really are a benefit to a community, and one of our largest assets as well. It's sort of the largest collective of city-owned property, very large part of our city workforce, and so over this past year, the teacher contract was renegotiated. We also had city contracts renegotiated, and one of the important things is being able to pay city personnel fairly and justly. And so some of the costs that we're seeing increasing also have to do with just making sure that we're keeping pace with what's fair and just. And healthcare costs, anybody who, any employer anywhere is grappling with this, or anybody who private pays, looking at healthcare costs. So that's part of the strain on it. It's absolutely something, though, that we need to contend with, because making sure people have health care is absolutely a right and the right thing to do. So those are some of the stressors. You mentioned the school budget and the way the city council receives it. You're absolutely right. We receive it as a full bottom line number, and we're not able to go back in our budget process and tinker with the individual line items. I think what will be incumbent on the city council in the year ahead is really to work together with superintendent. We have a new superintendent in Beverly, Peter Cushing, his team, our school side of the community and our school committee colleagues to really understand and to talk together about where are the needs in our schools, where are the things that are pulled or stretched thin, where are the things that we maybe could shift priorities around so we can really make sure we're investing in some of those biggest needs, and then we can bring forward a budget that hopefully can do the work it needs to do and make sure that our schools are well supported and well funded. You mentioned school performance. I think the 2025 MCAS scores have just come out, so it'll be interesting for us to get to dig into those as a district, as a community. They certainly don't tell the whole story. No standardized test will ever tell the whole story. They're one metric. I understand. I haven't dug into them yet myself, but I understand that we've got school communities where there are gains and progress that are being made, and so I think what will be really helpful for us as a community and enriching and productive is for us, and certainly for our educators. They work very collaboratively. So school communities where there's been gains in math or gains in ELA, which is the English language arts, working together. What's working well in one school, and how can we expand that across the district, and what are people learning from each other? I know there's a great culture of that already in our schools, of educators learning from each other. I think that we'll be able to continue that too, and that will be really productive.
Well, there's a lot of different activities going on nationwide, and some of it has to do with how do you treat AI in the schools, and AI is a fact of life, and you can't just say, okay, you get an X on this report because you got too much of it off of the web, no originality. Well, yeah, but at the same time, way back when, we were given an assignment, the first thing you do is go to the library and copy a paragraph out of the Encyclopedia Britannica and hope the teacher didn't recognize it, But, I mean, there's all sorts of things that happen like that. Surprisingly, excuse me, Dallas and D.C., District of Columbia,
Yes.
both have instituted programs of evaluating teachers. And they find that the scores of the students go up by 16%. And they have instituted programs for after hours for the teachers, so that if a teacher is having troubles, not up to snuff, okay, we've got an after-hours program. You go take this course and get better, rather than just saying, well, it's nice knowing you. And the issue of salary comes in on that thing also, and that this is one of the funny ones I get a kick out of from the last negotiations, that they wanted to get a better salary so they could attract better teachers. And, I don't think they thought about what does that mean about the teachers we've got already on staff.
Oh, I hear what you're saying. I think it's more when there's vacancies, right? Because we are fortunate to have excellent educators in Beverly.
Oh, yeah.
So, but filling vacancies can be hard when we're not paying people what they're worth. So.
Well, the other problem that did come up that is real is that when the teachers get to their last 5 years before retirement, they tend to move on to a better paying system because their retirement is based on how much did you earn your last 5 years. So it's an issue more about retention than it is about attraction.
I was going to say, we want to be able to retain those top level educators.
Yeah, so
certainly.
Paying good salaries is paramount to having a good school.
Absolutely, absolutely, and retaining, like you say, retaining excellent teachers over time is an asset to our schools.
And the other issue that keeps coming up that I hear about is we need more affordable housing. And Harbor Light Homes can only do so much, and we've only shut down so many schools, and they can't keep taking them over. But again, that's an issue that how do you attract people to live in the city and service the city as teachers, as police, as fire? And I had discussion with one of the contractors downtown, and if the people that work on the counters, they come from New Hampshire or
Yes.
far away. So the whole idea of having a complete city where everybody that works here can afford to live here.
Yes.
And this gets into issues about zoning. And I think it was California that came up with a calculation that 24% of the cost of a new building is meeting regulations.
Mm.
And I think this is one of the things that I think needs to be thought about every time somebody says, "Oh, we got a problem with this." We'll have a new regulation. It just keeps adding up, and
Yeah.
and then you get not in my backyard tribe that don't like things. So there's a real challenge, but it's a real problem too. That retaining staff means they've got to live here to be comfortable. You can't have them driving
Yes.
40, 50 miles to get here because at the wrong time of day, 128 turns into a very long, narrow parking lot.
It does. It does. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think affordability is another big topic that questions when I'm talking with people at the doors or in my city council role, just around the community. Because what we really are talking about is exactly what you said. It's sort of affordability at multiple levels and the need for housing at multiple levels. I think you're raising a great point about what might be sort of thought of as sort of mid-tier affordable workforce housing. How do you make sure in a community that the people who work in your community can live there? And you mentioned a bunch, I think, of really good examples where we've got teachers, we've got firefighters, we've got police, we've got the people who work and own and run stores and businesses and restaurants in our downtown, and in many cases cannot afford to live here.
Yeah.
And so that presents a very real affordability crisis of its own. And we also know that there's the need for deep affordability for families who may be coming out of poverty, coming out of homelessness. And so it really is talking about a wide swath of housing to ensure that there is enough. One of the questions you mentioned, or one of the thoughts you mentioned, was about zoning. And I think the state of Massachusetts broadly has been trying to think about how to increase housing and access, because you've got some communities that have really been working to increase housing. Massachusetts has some that are really working hard in this direction. Beverly is one. I think when we look around, we can see, as you said, we need more. We can see the work that's been done. Beverly and some of our neighbors, Salem and Peabody and Beverly, even have a memorandum of understanding about sort of working towards increasing housing access together. And so then there's other communities where there hasn't been as much of that work. So that people often talk about it as the 3A, but it's the MBTA Communities Act in Massachusetts. Yeah. And really just saying that if communities along different MBTA public transit, and there's different stipulations for what kind of MBTA community you are based on what kinds of public transit, just have to be zoned to allow a certain density of building. Now, for Beverly, we pretty much met the MBTA Community Act zoning right away because we've already done some of this thinking and work that you're talking about. I think for it to really be successful, partner communities all across the Commonwealth doing what Beverly's done and thinking about the questions you're asking, it will help expand. Now, we don't want our workforce, though, to have to live somewhere else far away in the Commonwealth. So we've got our own work to continue to do to think about access and affordability for sure.
Well, that issue comes down to one of, we can meet the minimum 10% requirement of quote affordable housing, which is another funny game. And I think Beverly is at
we're close to 12.
12 or 13, close to 12%.
Yes.
So we got margin. But it's the kind of housing that, you're close to the train station.
Yes.
You walk to the train station, hop on a train, you go into Boston, and you got a good job in Boston. So the housing on Rantoul Street, which helps meet that requirement, is not the kind of housing that somebody working in one of these fast food places can afford. And it even got to the point of, it's not a new problem either, but it's a teacher coming out of college gets a job and he or she can't afford an apartment around here.
Yes.
And had one, she was the president of the school committee at the time, was telling me when she got a degree, she had to get a roommate so the two of them at least could afford an apartment.
Yes.
And the situation has not changed. So it's different categories of housing that you mentioned.
Yes.
Is ones we need to work on. And it's not something that's going to happen by itself.
No, it
And-
definitely takes thought and planning, as you mentioned.
And when buildings go up, there's supposed to be 10% of it that is geared to affordable housing.
Yes.
That sounds nice, but most of the time, well, they'll pay that 10% into a kitty. And I'm not sure where that money is being spent, or if it's being spent, or it's just being accumulated.
Yeah, the Affordable Housing Trust. It can be used to promote other affordable housing projects. Often, what we've seen in Beverly, at least, is that most of the time, any of the developments that are apartments, rental intended properties, largely have opted to go with the route of including either 10 or 12% of their units on site to be affordable. It's 10% if they're going to be deeply affordable. And you're right, some of these definitions, that they're state housing driven definitions.
Yeah.
In a high cost of living community. I think you were sort of alluding to the fact that when we talk about what's affordable or deeply affordable, it's based off percentages of what the area median income is. So deeply affordable in a high cost of living community can still feel out of reach. And I think you're right to say, even thinking deeply about that and thinking maybe how we redefine that increases access. So developers right now in Beverly can choose to do 10% of the units at the deeply affordable rate, 12% if they're at sort of a different mid-tier kind of affordability. And then they can opt to pay into this affordable housing trust. And so what we've seen is that largely rental-intended developments have opted to do the units. We've had a few that have been higher end, intended for condominium sale, have paid into that. So it's something that I've been in conversations about whether or not it makes sense to continue to allow that buyout option. Because I agree with you. I think our policy, our advocacy work may be better spent increasing units, increasing access, rather than putting it into a fund.
Well, we got into that predicament with the dollar store. Originally, it was supposed to be a 5-story building, 143 units,
Yes.
and that would not be definitely affordable.
Yes.
Now it's an $8 million parking lot. What's going to happen to that one?
We just had a community meeting about this very question, just to hear from people in the community, to get input about when people think about the dollar store building, when they think about our downtown, what are people in Beverly hoping might happen there? What might people like to see? Which doesn't, none of our conversations, even, what I say I might like to see, or none of our conversations will definitely dictate until we sort of come around to a direction that we think we'd like to see, but also put the building out to an RFP process, request for proposal, which is how municipalities have to handle financial transactions. We have to put it out for a bid, make sure that it's fair and accessible, and then get the bids back. But the conversation in the meeting I thought was a really helpful and productive one. A large number of folks who came mentioned something that has been on my mind as well. And I think what we can expect is that likely any development there would include first floor street level retail, both because that's part of sort of the design standards that we have for Cabot Street and Rantoul Street, and because it serves sort of the best multi-use purpose in a downtown. So people talked about an accessible, walkable grocery store in the downtown, which of course Family Dollar was sort of filling that gap. It wasn't exactly a grocery store, but it was filling a gap that's been left, I would say, since Bell Market went out of the downtown, which used to be, located where A&B Burger is now. And so that's a real felt need. So people talked a lot about having a walkable grocery store downtown. There are hopes that might be in a street level sort of development for that. There were people who were talking about a hotel. We have a micro hotel at the Cabot Lodge, Beverly doesn't have a lot of other hotels. Wiley Inn at Endicott, which is great. But when people come for shows at the Cabot or for different levels of tourism, or even to visit their student at Montserrat or to visit their student at Endicott, they are ending up staying in other communities, which often means they're ending up going to restaurants in the other communities where they're staying.
Yeah.
So there's definitely conversation about that. And there was a lot of conversation about affordable housing, the need for more access at all levels, housing for seniors, and live workspace for artists was another part of the conversation. So that artists, we also have an arts district in Beverly. We're really fortunate. Communities with arts districts are a little bit rare, and so being able to nurture our artist community is something maybe doesn't get talked about as much, but it also is an important piece of both our economy and what makes our community so special. So the Beverly Village for Senior Living and the Arts, the old Briscoe School building, I know has some artist live work studios.
Yeah.
They've been hugely important. We don't have a lot more. So that was another piece of the conversation.
Well, now to the point where you make your pitch as to why you're such a good guy and need to be reelected.
Thank you. So over the past 4 terms that I've been serving as one of your at-large city councilors, it truly has been a pleasure and a privilege to be able to work hard for the people of Beverly, to be able to think about some of the problems and creative solutions, some of the things that Georgia and I have been talking about today. And we know that there are problems that will need creative solutions, community engagement, and thoughtful leadership carrying us into the future. And I would be incredibly honored to earn one of your 3 votes on November 4th for your counselor at large position so that I could continue to work together with you and with other city leaders to think about where we want our community to go, how we want it to grow, what we want it to look like, how we want to invest in our schools, support our educators, create a great community for our children, increase affordability and access, as George and I were talking about, to ensure that anyone who wants to call Beverly home is able to call Beverly home. It truly has been an honor, and I look forward to continuing to work hard for you in a 5th term if you choose to send me back to the City Council. So thank you so much for the consideration, and I hope to earn your vote on November 4th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for watching us this evening. And it being election season, there'll be more of these. And if you have a comment, send me an email. And if you've got a longer comment, there's room for you here at the table. Thanks again for watching, and stay tuned.